Well, it's been a good chunk of time. So one of the things that is highly imperfect about this process is exactly how long it's been since I've last spoken to you. But we're going to pick right back up where we left off with discussion of perfectionism. And when we left off, we were talking about how perfectionism is a recurrent thought, really, that X is not good enough. I'm not good enough, you're not good enough, nobody's good enough, nothing's good enough. Always there's something that our minds focus in on, usually slightly after the fact of the original experience, the pure experience of, like I demonstrated, taking a sip of water, or in this case, my preferred toxic beverage of choice, which I will not show the brand of. Uh-oh. I guess there goes that. No funds coming from the Pepsi-Cola company to me, though, unfortunately. So, what to do about this? Well, implicit in my last video, if not explicit, is to be aware of it. So, in ACT, this process is called diffusion, that normally we experience thoughts as just truth. Very often, if we're not being mindful, we experience our own thoughts as truth. I heard a really good one the other day from a client who had done EST back in the 70s. EST, Earhart Seminars training. They were really big back in the 70s. And apparently, they used to start by saying, we're going to talk about all the voices in your head. And now you're probably thinking, well, I don't have voices in my head. That's the voice in your head. I thought that was pretty clever. That's one way to identify thinking and to notice that process of thinking. So noticing perfectionism is really all we have to do with it. There's no stopping it. There's no disrupting it, really. What there is disrupting is the degree of conviction that we have that those thoughts are helpful, good, useful, worth paying a lot of attention to, worth getting bent out of shape about, or even worth struggling against, even worth trying to get rid of. Actually, in practicing mindfulness, we increasingly treat thoughts as, well, maybe well-intentioned little siblings coming along and bugging us. And so we're kind to the mind. We're not mean to the mind because it doesn't really help to be mean. And after all, it is part of us. So it's kind of like punching yourself in the head if you're really laying into your mind, which I guess is the mind laying into the mind. At this point, language starts to fall apart. But this kind of attitude of kindness and, oh yes, thank you for your help. Little brother or little sister, thank you for your help. I got this one. We're good here. My toxic beverage of choice is just fine how it is, with all its faults. And then moving on to the next valued activity. So choosing again. Someone very wise once said the entire philosophy of her life could be summed up in 2 words, 3 syllables. Choose again. So, here I am. The world isn't perfect. Whatever it is I'm talking about or thinking about is definitely not perfect. And I see that, and I see that my mind would like it to be perfect. And I see that, and thank you, mind. Thanks. That's great. But we're going to just choose again. Whatever comes next, whatever valued activity comes next. You got to do something. Even if it's meditate, even if it's lie and rest, even if it's sleep, you're doing something. So what would serve my values to do next? I'm going to end up sounding a little like a broken record, I'm afraid, because there's something very fundamental about this. And yet our minds don't like it. We don't like how simple this is. We want the answer, in as much as there is an answer to these kinds of problems. We want it to be fancier. We want it to be more impressive. In a way, it's very fancy because what we're doing is we're dislodging ourselves from the control of the verbal mind. So we're diminishing the importance of verbal behavior and the impact of verbal behavior on overt behavior, to use the geeky language of behavior analysis as best I can. So in other words, separating from the mind, diminishing the importance of the narrative, discursive mind, of the voices in our head. That pretty much captures it. Well, just as a side note, if you want to really annoy a therapist, schedule with them and don't show up. But since I have certain things that I'd like to get done, I'm always asking, what's next? That's fine, that's not perfect, and what do I want to do now? I choose again. I try. Good night, and good living. Something. Still working on that.